Hey everyone, Cody Menz here with another What's New video. There's a ton of stuff to go over today, and yeah, let's get started. Currently, the 1.10.1 public test server is live as of basically me recording it today here on Thursday. However, this might be the first you're seeing of it if you haven't really kept up on the news today. Essentially, we got some changes to the game. I'm going to start with those, and we'll go into basically some like super test leaks and other leaks and stuff. And for the most part, I'm on the public test server right now. One of the best changes, and I'll start with this is my personal opinion. I've already seen some people complaining about dog tags, which I think is stupid because like they're just little trinkets and personal things that you can customize, which by the way, there's actually two settings on the public test server that if you don't care about them, you don't like seeing them, you click them and you can't see them anymore. Hooray. In any event though, they're adding dog tags in on a permanent basis, and you can thank Tragic Loss. She actually kind of confirmed this because I was a little worried that they'd be essentially starting from scratch the moment this patch comes out. Apparently though, it will retroactively count all your previous stats, you know, from the way that, you know, we all think it's going to work here. So ultimately what's happening here, so whenever you kill somebody, this actually shows up kind of like last year at the tank festival. And for doing certain things like this WoT seniority, this is number of days since your registration, total number of damage that you've blocked, assist damage, earn a ace tanker. Once you earn this for the first time, from my understanding, it'll show all of the ace tankers that you've gotten, in my case since like 2011 hopefully, or whenever they start tracking them. But once you earn it for the first time, it'll show essentially the total number that you've done across your whole account, not just up to starting at this patch, which I think is awesome. So like this is another little thing to like personalize your account, show off a little bit, and I think it's pretty cool, to be completely honest, when it comes down to it. And there's different basically categories, so like average damage, victory percentage, destroyed, stuff like that. I think the WTR is my favorite thing, and ace tankers, because I personally want to see how many tanks I've aced, because I think I'm up to like 256 or 65, something like that, ace tanks like individually. Curious how many I have in total. However, I'll applaud Wargaming for this because I would love to see them expand on so like the Hall of Fame, World of Tanks rating, and add, you know, a little bit more weight to that, because I feel like it's great for the game if they focus on stats in the client without mods and like stupid player made metrics that honestly cause a lot of stupid little squabbles and stuff, and like honestly putting people down for stupid reasons. I think this is great because honestly, WTR, now you can show it off, and you know, when you kill somebody, you'd be like, hey, you know, I just think it's something cool, you know, and if you don't like them, you don't have to see them. And they kind of broke them into different categories. I think this is a pretty good thing for them to add in, and I'm sure that there'll be like collectibles and stuff for doing special events and whatnot. Before I get to the tank rebalances too, another awesome thing that they've done is if you go into equipment, it's actually easier to move around the user interface now, and it's so much better. Like I forget there's a couple other little things they've done, but they've improved a lot of the user interfaces when it comes to the garage, equipment system, stuff like that. So I'm going to leave this up here for a second, just to go over this before I go over my opinion on the tank changes. But essentially, we've already went over dog tags. I think that's a pretty good change here. They also high tier medium tank rebalancing, so we'll get into that in a second, but essentially the E50M line, buffs, Leopard prototype small nerf, as you can see here, Chinese tanks, buffs for the most part, and the Russian Object 140 a buff. I'm sure people are like, Russian bias. I'll explain why it's not all doom and gloom. Season 2 of rank battles, they're essentially tweaking them and honestly some improvements. So mode interface, there's a nice little thing here now. Also, the team killer status has been revised, which is awesome. This should come to standard battles as well. Please, Wargaming. But essentially in ranked, if you stun allied tanks, you're going to gain the team killer status faster. And when it comes to the UI, just went over that. Essentially, you're able to drag and drop, improvements to the user interface, and some pretty nice things with that. One other big change outside of the tank changes, which I'm surprised they called it 1.10.1 instead of 1.11. But anyway, they're changing maps. So Berlin, Westfield, Roenberg, and Erlingberg. So these changes here, I highly recommend. All these links you'll see here are in the video description in order, and there's a lot of them, as you can see. A lot of these for Berlin, basically they're going over changing like little bits and pieces of the cover, specifically in the northern like town area. Most of these changes, honestly, it's not really going to affect too much the differences between each side. It's just kind of balancing out the sides, hold down potential and fighting around corners and making it equal. When it comes to Westfield, you'll see here, this is so original. They're essentially changing the building placement so both sides get this building, which only right now the northern side has. So basically balancing it out. I like that. It honestly it's going to make the map so much better and a little bit more fair. Erlingberg, so this is original. They're essentially doing the same kind of that the opposite town side has to make it a little bit more playable, again, for both sides in a sense, where you'll actually be able to play this a little bit better, because right now there's not too much cover for both sides here. And also the river is going to be a little bit more crossable as well, as you can kind of see here. So it'll be a little bit easier to get across. Roenberg actually has some big changes. So I said this when they introduced the new reworked Roenberg. I love the map. However, I feel like the northern spawn was a lot better. So they've added some cubby holes into the southern side to kind of balance out compared to the northern side. Great. They've removed basically that little nudge embankment that the northern team had to actually play here and lock this down. That's great as well, because honestly this was a little bit too strong, because the northern team had so much more capability there. They also nerfed this spot again to kind of nerf basically the northern team in a sense, albeit. So one thing they haven't put here in these sliders, if you look at the buildings in the background, it looked like they also changed the buildings here. So it looks like they've removed basically buildings over, in the field. I don't know if that's actually coming or maybe it was just a mistake, but essentially that could be a pretty huge change here if they actually removed some buildings. But in any event, and last but not least, again, a little bit when it comes to the cover here, which is pretty nice. So it basically balances it out a bit, and they also added in more encounter battles: Pilsing, Westfield, Studzianki, and Karelia. And this is a huge change, probably one of the largest changes in this patch, which people will not even see. They are changing the way that, so transport vehicles, cars, trucks, tractors, buses, helicopters, and planes, currently when you shoot them, like HE and heat shells obviously get soaked up by them. However, AP and APCR also get soaked up by them. I use them for cover all the time because it's a free, soak up one shot from the enemy. They're going to function now like basically destructible walls and, single pieces of cover where you can shoot an APCR cell, shell through them. Bleh. Too many S's. However, your penetration drops off afterwards. Currently, though, you can't do that. It soaks the cell up completely. That's now going to change, and you will be able to shoot through buses and small things, basically vehicles. Big change. A lot of people aren't going to notice it, but people that know that that's a game mechanic need to be aware of that. Also, they're basically making daily missions a little bit harder. Let's be honest, most of us complete daily missions in like 1 or 2 battles, and they're adding in larger rewards, which is pretty nice if you ask me, like equipment, training booklets. I'm actually pretty excited for that, because usually you log on, you do it in the first battle or two, and then you're like, meh, whatever. Before we move on to some other stuff, like we'll get to this in a moment here, not to kind of drag the Chieftain off to the side. When it comes to tank rebalances, I'll just focus on the tier 10s here, because this video is going to be way too long anyway with all the changes and leaks and stuff kind of happening. My personal opinion on the changes, I like the Chinese medium tank rebalance. 121, essentially, if you look at the gun's much better than the 430Us. However, armor-wise, you're a little bit, or quite a bit worse than the 430U. Mobility is a little bit better on the 121. So a little bit faster, better gun, 430U, better armor. 140. So this tank, I feel like, you know, it was a little bit weak before they did this. The buff, honestly, the gun depression helps it a lot. Oh, the whole armor doesn't really do too much, let's be honest, unless it's like against a tier 8 or something, or like a light tank not shooting premium. If you look at it compared to the 907 now, the 140, so 2 degrees more gun depression. Gun-wise, a little bit less DPM, a little bit better accuracy, but overall, you know, the gun depression is nice on this. Armor, you know, turret armor, you can kind of compare the two. 907 might edge it out a little bit, and 907 has the better side armor. But for the most part, 140 is a little bit more comfortable than the 907 at, you know, sacrificing a bit of armor. And then when it comes to the mobility, they're pretty much in line. Also with the camouflage and V range are close enough. So it's really the Object 140, like it's helping it out a little bit, which the 7 degrees of gun depressions is going to be really nice. And, you know, would I have given it 7 degrees of gun depression? Probably not. But at the same time, like, I don't think it makes the tank broken. And like compared to like other tanks, say like the M48 Patton, STB1, you know, other kind of tanks with more gun depression, the 140 is not going to really tread on their ability to fight over hills as much as, you know, some people might make it out to be. It's kind of a nice change. It makes the tank a little bit better, but not broken. E50M, you know, they slapped a ton of turret armor on this thing. And also the tanks before it, they buffed the 8.8 centimeter gun pretty well, which is nice. So turret armor got better on the E50M, but honestly, it still sucks. You know, it's accurate, but if you look at it compared to Leopard 1 just beats it in pretty much every category. But your DPM's still terrible. So now you have a little bit more turret armor. Not enough to really protect you against many tier 10 tanks, especially if they're shooting premium. And your DPM sucks. Yeah, you're accurate, but why not just play a Leopard 1? That's where I'm a little confused about. But, you know, the tank's going to be better, but is it great? You know, I still think it's probably going to be one of the poorer tier 10 medium tanks. But, you know, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I do think like the tier 9, the tier 8 are going to be pretty nice. The tier 9 especially is going to be much better, you know, tier for tier now. In any event, though, let's get to the rest of what's happening. If you didn't catch it, you know, basically catch the Chieftains. I caught a little bit of it. He did a live stream on Twitch, and I'm pretty sure you can catch the replay of it on Wargaming's channel and also on YouTube most likely. It was pretty informative and honestly pretty interesting to listen to. Him and I forget honestly his name. There you go, Harry. It was pretty fun. Like I watched it setting up my live stream and I thought it was pretty cool, especially if you like history. Now, getting into super test stuff and like leaks and, you know, this and that. You know, all of this, again, links in the video description. You can pop over to rykozet.info, which for the most part, they pull it off of WoT Express. They're the ones who leak most things. However the hell they come about it, they leak things. Whether or not they're 100% true, you know, it's all speculation. But for the most part, I go for Rykozet right now because it's beyond difficult to block. They have some really bad ads on WoT Express, and you know, don't need to be showing some pretty R or X-rated stuff on YouTube videos. I don't want to get my YouTube channel in trouble. In any event, all the links you see here in the video description, super chaffy. So all these hit the public 1.10.1. This is so weird for me to say that. I don't know why they didn't do 1.11. Anyway, it's essentially in the client now. This is most likely going to be the well-deserved reward for veteran players. And essentially we're going to get the super chaffy, the bobblehead, essentially back, most likely this year. They also added the Object 27A for super testers, and they changed the stats a little bit of it, basically a nerf. And, you know, these tanks, who knows what are going to become of them? Maybe holiday ops loot box tanks. Maybe they're just going to sell them. Maybe part of a special event. Who the hell knows? And, you know, essentially more premium tanks coming. There's a lot of them. Again, GSOR 1008. This is essentially a tank destroyer. So this, I feel like, is the precursor to British wheeled tanks that are going to be classified most likely as TDs. And, you know, when it comes to this tank, again, it got a small little nerf here to the accuracy, a little buff on the aiming time. This tank seems pretty interesting. You know, initially it was like really broken, and they kind of tweaked it a little bit. However, if you look at this tank, and then, albeit it's not classified as a TD, you look at like the T69 in the American line, it's crying a little bit. This tank's, it seems pretty good. It seems pretty fun and unique too. And I feel like kind of a precursor to the British wheel tanks that we might see next year. They also added the Caro 40T, which is a tier 10 Italian medium tank the last I saw. I don't think that they classified it as a heavy. But more or less, you know, this is again added in, getting closer to being released. And, you know, this is either going to be a tier 10 clan war tank, or it might be, so they keep teasing that the next line is going to be Italian heavy tank line. Maybe they're going to classify this as a heavy tank and this is the tier 10, or maybe they kind of change their mind and it's going to be Italian medium tank line, another one. Who knows? Basically, it's a beefier version of the Progetto 65, stat-wise. You know, the gun's a little bit more heavy tank-like, armor too, a little bit less mobility. Cobra, so this is a British, basically, premium tank. Nobody knows exactly how this thing's going to come out. There's some little bit of the stats on it. Basically, armor looks pretty decent. Gun depression is really good at 10 degrees. And the gun, you know, hits pretty hard here. And more or less, nobody knows how the hell this thing's going to come out. This is something where I think this might be like the holiday ops tank, because it's pretty unique. And, you know, it's kind of quirky, fun, but also really good. I feel like, you know, this is something that they could do for that. Now getting into some 3D styles and stuff. Basically 3D style for the IS-2. And there's also one that looks pretty darn similar for the Object 703 version 2. They honestly are pretty tame when it comes to wargaming 3D styles, to be completely honest. On top of that, you got some 2D styles. When it comes to this might be, you know, something with the next battle pass maybe, but they're kind of guessing it's for the global map as well, which could be, you know, also true as well. Super tests, which I'm trying to move through these because the video is going to be very long here. There's also a new tier 8 Chinese medium tank, the Chinese 122 TM, which this tank almost seems, from my understanding, it's like a more modern version of the 121, which is really weird that it's going to be at tier 8. Essentially though, you got yourself a pretty wicked gun for a tier 8 medium tank. However, the DPM at 1500 is terrible. It's got a really decent, accurate gun though. It's really just slow firing, low DPM. It's going to be strange, but, you know, they nerfed it a bit because, you know, this tank, it's going to be interesting. Like, I don't know what the hell these things are, but for the most part, it seems like it's going to be a pretty different tank. Who knows how many people are going to like it though, but at the same time, the thing reminds me a little bit of like the T-34 heavy tank. Gun depression is decent here, you know, it hits hard, albeit it's a medium tank. Next up, so super tests, and this is a video over to WoT Express here. Basically, this is a map that they've been developing for a while. It seems like they picked it back up. It's not the old port that used to be in the game. This is a different one, and essentially it's got tunnels and stuff like that, and essentially they're developing it. This might be a map that we see next year. And again, this is the same one here, just a different picture of it, and also some images. And they're also scrolling down here. They're currently finalizing kind of some Minsk changes too, which you can kind of see. It's going to be a pretty different map, to be completely honest. And you know, it seems pretty nice, the changes to Minsk. Like it adds a lot more gameplay or gameplay opportunities, and also flanks to it, and makes the map a little bit larger. What's not to like? Last but not least, so I can't really elaborate too much on this, but you've probably seen Wargaming's video here, which, you know, this will link to their YouTube teaser video about, you know, there's a Waffentrager in this video, and essentially it just says soon, and it will return. That's all that Wargaming has officially posted, and, you know, when it comes to this, who the hell knows what's going to happen? Now, if you go on to these leaks, which came from WoT Leaks, you know, WoT Express, essentially, you know, some people are assuming that it's going to be a boss mode against 7 players, and it's going to start basically the 28th, coming up here in September. And apparently a reward with loot boxes, or however the hell these things are going to work, is the new American T-77 Tier 8 Premium, what is it, medium tank, heavy tank? They're kind of flip-flopping back and forth. I think it's a heavy at this point, though. It's basically a mini, like, T-57. It doesn't look crazy, honestly, crazy overpowered. It looks pretty good, but it does have some drawbacks if you compare it to like the Samua SM and other Tier 8 autoloaders. So you know, it doesn't look too broken, that tank. I covered this a few weeks ago. And you know, there's some other, you know, leaks. Honestly, if you ask me, this looks like it's photoshopped very poorly, because that's from Holiday Ops last year. And that's where, you know, people were kind of guessing and assuming and leaking stuff when it comes to things, and sometimes things are fake. I can't exactly elaborate again, but you know, the consensus is there's going to be some sort of special event kind of hovering, or not hovering, centered around like a Waffentrager coming up. And there's also, it says T-55s, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see if this actually, you know, comes. And something that worries me, just kind of reading what, you know, people think is coming, and this is coming from like the Russian server, so something along special crate and reopening and like re-rolling your loot boxes and spending gold, and you can roll it up to 5 times, and like it worries me a lot, because like something that's really good about World of Tanks is Holiday Ops, and like the way they do the loot boxes, the where, you know, you get your bang for your buck. And now, like, if you're going off of this, they're introducing another like special limited time event now in the fall with loot boxes for tanks, and like who knows what else comes along with it, whether it's 2D or 3D styles or whatever, or gold or whatever. But it's a little scary in a way, because it seems like they're taking what the player base likes from Holiday Ops, and now we're going to see this come up more frequently, and like more and more and more. And like, I feel like monetizing things with random elements is a really slippery slope that honestly, like, you know, and this is where it's coming from me as CC, and I get a lot of stuff, you know, and I don't have to buy as much as your average player when it comes to new content. And I think it's a really bad thing they can do. So that's one thing that honestly turns me off from games, is like a bunch of loot boxes, and like the way that World of Warships does like their epic crates, and like you know, their basically crate system in the game. It seems like a good idea, but the more randomness and like RNG you add in, especially for people to play an event and spend money, it's bad. Like that worries me if this is true about, you know, this info that's being leaked here. You know, who knows? Like, I don't really know anything about that, but you know, I guess we'll find out soon according to these leaks. But in any event, you know, thanks for watching, guys. This was kind of a long video. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week for, you know, another What's New. And have a good one, and see you guys around.